Love isn't just about passion, it's about trust, commitment, and the courage to take the next step. In this heartfelt story, Diem and Toan's romance blossoms after a night of sweetness, where they finally become one. Toan, full of devotion, proposes that they register their marriage, giving their love a rightful name and future. Hand in hand, they walk into the government office, nervous yet determined, and sign the papers that seal their destiny as husband and wife. Stay with us, subscribe to the channel, and dive into this emotional journey of love, promises, and forever. The soft glow of the morning sun slipped quietly through the half-open curtains, spilling across the room in warm, golden streaks. Diem stirred gently, her eyelashes fluttering against her cheeks as she opened her eyes, still wrapped in the lingering sweetness of the night before. Her body, still trembling with memory, nestled closer into the embrace of Toan, who held her protectively, as though afraid she might slip away. For the first time in her life, she felt completely safe, completely his. The sound of his steady breathing, the warmth of his chest against her back, and the way his arms wrapped around her like an unspoken vow, all of it settled into her heart like a promise she had been waiting for. The air was quiet, almost sacred, carrying the delicate scent of jasmine from the garden outside, and the faint traces of passion still lingering in the room. Diem's lips curved into a soft, shy smile as memories of the night replayed in her mind. The way Toan had looked at her with eyes full of love, the gentle way he had touched her as if she were something precious, and the way their souls seemed to entwine with every whispered word, every heartbeat, every kiss. It wasn't simply about desire. It was about trust, surrender, and the certainty that they had crossed an invisible threshold. She had given him not just her body, but also her heart, and she felt no fear in doing so. Toan shifted slightly, tightening his hold on her as if sensing her thoughts. His face was calm in the morning light, yet there was a depth in his expression that spoke of devotion. Diem turned her head slowly, studying him as though she was seeing him for the first time. His features, so familiar and yet so captivating, seemed different now, etched with a quiet strength and a tenderness that made her chest ache with emotion. She thought of all the moments that had led them here, the laughter, the arguments, the long nights of confiding in each other. Each memory seemed to converge into this single morning where she finally understood what it meant to truly belong to someone. Her heart pounded softly, not from uncertainty, but from the realization that she had found her forever. No words were spoken between them, yet the silence carried more meaning than any declaration. Every glance, every touch whispered the truth. They were no longer just lovers, no longer simply two people in love. They had become each other's home. Diem closed her eyes again, letting herself sink into the rhythm of Toan's heartbeat, a sound that now felt like her own. A wave of gratitude washed over her, mingled with a tender joy she could hardly contain. The world outside could wait. This moment was theirs, untouched, eternal. She knew that life ahead might not always be as gentle as this dawn, but as long as she had Toan's arms around her, she would never feel alone. In that quiet, sacred morning, Diem understood something profound. Love was not only about the fiery passion of the night, but also the peace that followed, the calm assurance that lingered when the world faded away. She had found both in Toan. And as she pressed her cheek against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart, she knew without a doubt, after this night, after this embrace, she was his and he was hers, in every way that mattered. The stillness of the morning wrapped around them, broken only by the gentle rustle of the curtains as the breeze slipped into the room. Toan stirred, his eyes slowly opening to find Diem nestled in his arms. A smile curved his lips, tender and full of emotion, as though waking up beside her was a dream he never wanted to end. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and she looked up at him, her gaze shy but radiant. For a moment, they simply stared into each other's eyes, letting the unspoken connection pass between them, stronger than any words. Then Toan drew a deep breath, his voice low and steady, carrying the weight of a decision he had clearly made from the depths of his heart. "Diem," he began, his tone trembling slightly with sincerity. "Last night wasn't just about love. It was about trust, about us choosing each other completely. I don't want you to ever feel uncertain about what you mean to me." His thumb gently caressed the back of her hand as he held it tightly. "I want us to go and register our marriage. I want the world to know that you are my wife, not only in my heart, but also in the eyes of the law. I want you to feel secure, to know that I will stand beside you for every step of our lives." The words settled into the air like a sacred vow, and Diem froze for a heartbeat, her eyes widening in surprise. She had never doubted his love, but hearing his proposal spoken with such conviction made her heart race uncontrollably. She searched his face, hoping to find any trace of hesitation, but there was none. His gaze was unwavering, steady as the ground beneath her feet. The depth of his devotion reached her core, and suddenly tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of overwhelming happiness. "Toan," she whispered, her voice catching. "You really mean that?" He nodded, his hand lifting to cradle her cheek. "I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You've given me your trust, your heart, even yourself. I want to give you back everything I can, starting with my name, my promise, and my life." Her breath shuddered, and before she could stop them, the tears slipped free, glistening as they rolled down her cheeks. She tried to speak, but words failed her, drowned in the tide of emotions sweeping through her. Instead, she leaned forward, pressing her forehead against his, her silent answer delivered in the warmth of her closeness. When she finally managed to nod, her lips curved into a smile trembling with both joy and relief. "Yes, Toan," she whispered through her tears. "Yes, I want that too. I want to be your wife, in every sense." A light flickered in Toan's eyes, a mixture of triumph and tenderness, as though her acceptance had given him new life. He pulled her into his arms again, holding her as if he would never let go. The embrace was more than affection. It was a seal, a binding of souls that no paper could fully capture, which the marriage certificate would immortalize. In that quiet morning, surrounded by sunlight and silence, Diem felt an unshakable certainty settle into her heart. What had begun as a tender night of love had blossomed into a lifelong commitment. They were no longer just lovers sharing fleeting moments of passion. They were partners stepping forward into forever. And with every heartbeat, she knew that Toan's promise was not only for today, but for every tomorrow that awaited them. The morning of their wedding registration arrived with a quiet sense of destiny. The sky was a brilliant blue, clear as if it had been painted just for them, and the sun cast a gentle glow over the city, bathing everything in golden light. Diem stood before the mirror, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the simple white blouse she had chosen. She did not wear a wedding dress, not yet, but the purity in her expression and the sparkle in her eyes made her look more radiant than any gown could. Behind her, Toan waited patiently, his gaze fixed on her reflection with a mixture of pride and awe. He stepped closer, placing his hands gently on her shoulders, and whispered, "You're perfect, Diem. Today, nothing else matters but us." They walked side by side to the local government office, their hands interlocked, fingers laced tightly as though neither was willing to let go. The streets bustled with everyday life, vendors calling, bicycles passing, the hum of traffic. But for Diem and Toan, the world felt distant, muted, as though they were walking in a dream that belonged only to them. Each step toward the office was a step deeper into their future, a path they had chosen together without hesitation. Diem's heart fluttered, caught between nervousness and joy, but Tuan's steady presence beside her gave her the strength she needed. When they entered the modest registration hall, the air was filled with a sense of solemnity. Other couples were there too, waiting for their turn, their faces glowing with anticipation. Diem and Toan found a seat, their hands never parting. She leaned slightly into him, whispering, "I'm nervous." Toan smiled reassuringly, "So am I, but remember, this is the start of our forever. We'll walk through it together." His words, simple yet powerful, melted the tension in her chest. Finally, their names were called. They stood and, with hearts pounding, walked toward the desk where an official awaited them. The marriage papers were laid neatly before them, the ink glistening under the light as if it had been waiting only for their signatures. Diane's hands trembled as she took the pen, the gravity of the moment pressing down on her. But when she glanced at Toan, who smiled at her with quiet confidence, she found her courage. Slowly, she signed her name, each stroke of the pen echoing like a vow in her soul. Toan followed, his movements steady and sure, as though he had been waiting his whole life for this one act. The officials stamped the papers, and just like that, a single sheet became the most important document of their lives. Diane felt a rush of emotion so intense it nearly overwhelmed her. Her tears pulled in her eyes again, but this time she let them fall freely. She turned to Toan, and without words, he pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly before everyone. The hall seemed to fade away, the voices of others nothing but background noise. In that embrace, Diane understood fully what had changed. They were no longer just lovers bound by passion or promises whispered in the dark. They were now husband and wife, recognized not only by their hearts, but also by the world. The certificate was thin, fragile even, but it carried the weight of eternity. As they left the building, the sunlight welcomed them, brighter than before. Toan held her hand firmly, his eyes gleaming with joy. "From today on, you'll never have to face anything alone. We are one." Diane leaned against him, her smile radiant despite the tears still glistening on her cheeks. She knew he was right. With that piece of paper, with that vow, their love had taken root in something unshakable. And as they walked away, their hearts were already building the home, the life, and the forever they had promised each other.
Xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Mín Biểu Diễn Review. Vậy là trong tập phim hôm nay của chúng ta ngày hôm nay Diễm và Toàn đã chính thức đi đăng ký kết hôn làm vợ chồng trước pháp luật Việt Nam. Điều đó chính là một bước tiến lớn trong mối quan hệ của Diễm và Toàn. Liệu rằng một đám cưới đẹp như mơ và đầy hạnh phúc của Diễm với Toàn đã sắp diễn ra hay chưa? Tất cả những tình tiết hấp dẫn này sẽ được hé lộ vào các tập tiếp theo, sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh Lý Tử Diễm Review. Các bạn hãy bấm vào nút đăng ký kênh để nhận được thông báo mới nhất về tập phim sẽ được phát hành trên kênh vào buổi sáng lúc 6 giờ giờ Việt Nam nha. Và đặc biệt đừng quên hãy bấm nút like, nút chia sẻ và để lại bình luận ở dưới video để ủng hộ kênh của tụi mình nha. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại. Bye bye.